What are some of the downsides of living abroad? Let's talk about expatriation and the challenges it entails. The first thing that I wanted to touch on in this video is a very important subject that a lot of us seem to neglect, because we wait until it's already too late and then we're like, wow, we should have taken care of this much sooner, because a lot of people have built their cushion, they have a cushion. What I'm talking about is a pension, having social security. Because if you live in a different country, if you live in a country where the government does not provide a pension for whatever reason, you may be in a country where you're paying taxes, but the government is not issuing you a pension. That is a big con of living abroad. It's a big con of expatriation. And you really need to take a look at the country you intend to move to, where you want to move to make sure that they have some sort of decent pension system available. But now you may think, well, what are you talking about, Jerry? Because it's not important to me. I'm a millionaire, or I make so much money in my internet business. I don't care about pension. I have already a decent cushion. I have savings. I have investments. I have all the money that I need. I don't need a pension. If that's you, then don't worry about it. But I'm talking to the average Joe that does not have $1 million or millions of dollars in the bank. Unless you made a lot of money with crypto or in business, you had some kind of really good income stream that helped you to build up that massive cushion, you're gonna need some security for your retirement. And not having a pension, not having social security, not having a cushion is going to be a problem sooner or later. It may not be a problem to you right now because you think like, well, I can live in this country, on the little money. Maybe it's just like $700 a month, $1,000, $1,500 a month. But how can you afford to live in the country right now? Is it because you actually work? What do you do right now? I mean, where do you get your money from? And are you going to have an income from that source 10 years from now, 20 years from now? What I want for you is to think ahead, because you don't want to let this pile up. Because if you let this pile up and when the time comes, you're out of money and you need to find a way to get some residual income, but guess what? You didn't really make the effort to put together a decent pension plan for yourself. It could very well be that you're stranded in a place like Southeast Asia, maybe Eastern Europe, Latin America, and you don't have a cushion. So how are you going to live for your retirement if you don't have money? Really think about this. I also wanted to touch on the 401k idea. The 401k was initially introduced in the late 70s. Before the 401k was introduced in the United States, do you know how it worked? Because there had to be a system in place pre-401k. What companies did was to offer pensions. So the company took care of the employees' taxes and they set aside some money, which was later on used for pension, for a pension plan. It's very possible that you are this generation that I'm talking about right here, the lucky generation that has still a pension, but it could very well be that you're a millennial who won't have a pension because, if you're an American millennial, you may not have a pension, unless you work for a decent company that sets aside money for you, right? That pays the taxes for you, and you don't only get Social Security, you also will have a pension, right? If you're going to have both, then that'd be amazing. But the average person won't have that. If you are an entrepreneur and you pay your taxes in the US, you're probably not going to have a pension. You're going to have Social Security, and you're going to have a Nasdaq, maybe you're going to have a 401k, you have your investments and stuff, but you may not have a pension. Now we're just talking about Americans, right? Things look differently in Canada and Europe, Most European countries, they do offer pension plans for their citizens, So the employer takes care of the employee, they handle all the taxes, they create that pension plan, that vital income. The point is, doesn't matter where you're situated, make sure you have some kind of plan in place. If you can get some kind of minimum pension, some kind of minimum retirement security from a country, it doesn't need to be your native country, it could be the country where you're situated. That is something worth looking into, because you do it sooner rather than later, you're going to have fewer regrets. you do it later, you didn't consider a lot of those things, chances are you're going to hate yourself further down the road. Because you're going to see the other guys that are having money, that are having a pension, that are having social security, and you're not going to have anything, and you're going to struggle to make ends meet. That's not what you want. If you're lucky, or I shouldn't say lucky, but if you're among the people that, if you have your own business and you work hard and you've worked hard all your life, you're a hustler, you have investments, you have assets, then fantastic, but that's not the average person, right? Some people have that, some people don't have that, but the most important thing is that you have some kind of security. Another huge con that a lot of people don't want to point out because they just see the positive, right? It's the shiny object syndrome, is air pollution, right? Is pollution. Pollution is a huge problem. It decreases your life expectancy. It creates illnesses. And if you have any kind of precondition, then air pollution could be your biggest enemy of your lifetime. Developing countries are more unregulated than developed countries. Developed countries like the United States, Canada, Australia, the European Union, right? New Zealand, Hong Kong, Singapore, those countries are highly regulated, have high air quality, right? Life is more expensive, but you have better health care. You have cleaner air to breathe in. Now you may think, well, I don't care about cleaner air, it won't make a difference. Well, maybe it doesn't make a difference right now, but if you're exposed to air pollution long enough, it could make a big difference, There's a lot of data that suggests that the average person that's exposed to air pollution, to really dirty air for decades, is gonna end up with huge health problems. We're talking allergies, lung problems, reintroduced asthma. We know there's so many different things here that you don't want to miss out on, so consider it. It's really funny because there's a lot of guys talking about how great Belgrade, Serbia is. It's such a great place, the people are very hospitable and it's such an amazing place. You don't pay any taxes, blah, 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 blah. Well, but take a look at the negatives too, because in a place like Belgrade, you're gonna have horrible air to breathe every single day. It's not like you're living in Hawaii, which is obviously a very expensive place, but you get what you pay for. You end up in a place like this, guess what's gonna happen? You have shitty air to breathe. And even if a young person says, oh, it's not that big of a deal, I don't care about it. Maybe it doesn't matter to him right now, but it could matter to him decades later, but he doesn't know that because he's naive. He doesn't see the bigger picture. But developing countries have pros, right? They have a lot of pros. If you go there, yes, you can save money on taxes, but if you don't pay taxes, then you're also not going to have, free healthcare. You're not going to have a pension. You don't have a clean environment to live in, and that's the biggest thing. And you're also not going to have maybe a safe environment to live in. You have poor infrastructure. There's a lot of downsides to living in developing countries. That's what I wanted to point out. But air pollution is a big thing. Another con of expatriation is racism. And now you would think like, well, what you're talking about? Well, racism is present almost everywhere, depending on where you're at. In some places, it's mainly the smaller towns, the villages, the countryside where you have racist people. But then there's also racist people in bigger cities in certain places. What I'm trying to say is that really consider where you move, to really consider the people. If the people are only friendly to you because you spend money, and if otherwise they're cold, or if they just don't like a certain race, then I'd reconsider moving to that place. And that really is true, not only in places like Asia. There are certain Asian countries that are not big fan of white people. That's just the way it is. Same really goes for Eastern European countries. There's a lot of Eastern European countries that don't like people of color. That's just how it is. It's ingrained in the DNA. Consider carefully the place you want to move to. Take a look what other people are talking about the place. The history doesn't lie. The experience of other people doesn't lie. Doesn't mean you can't try it out yourself. In fact, you can and you should. But before you make a huge investment in a place, make sure that the place is really suitable, make sure that the people are worth it, and make sure that it's a tolerant culture if there could be potential problems because of your nationality, your ethnicity, whatever it is, right? Because I want you to have a great life wherever you decide to move, but you need to do your homework. Lack of equal rights is a huge problem. Look, there's a ton of places where I can't own property, I can't own land. Now, would I ever live in such a place forever? Definitely not, definitely not. You know, for instance, if I can't live in a place and become a citizen, then why would I live there? If I can't become a citizen, a resident, or at least a resident of a country where I've lived in, where I've paid taxes, then in my personal opinion, that country is not worth my presence. Because a country that values my presence, right, is a country that will allow me to become a resident, a citizen, have equal rights, right? Balance, equal rights. You know, Thailand, Malaysia, those countries are a lot of fun, but you're never going to have equal rights in those countries. It's going to be difficult. In a country like Japan, practically impossible to become a citizen, right? Taiwan, China, you know, whatever. The Philippines is a little bit more lenient, right? It's easier to become a resident or citizen of the Philippines. Another big component to consider is whether a country, you know, you want to move to, you know, maybe you can become a citizen, but they don't allow dual citizenship. So how good is that going to be? Yeah, you could take, you know, maybe Thai citizenship, but if you can have Canadian citizenship at the same time, how good is that? It's not very good, right? Consider all of this. Dating can be a con, and let me explain what I mean by that. If you're a mid-age, older guy, you'd think that a place like Southeast Asia is perfect, right? You can date younger women. You can date a woman that's decades younger than you. Isn't that attractive? Hell yeah! Hell yeah, it's attractive, right? How can that not be attractive, right? Especially if you've been married to someone, you know, and things finally ended because she was in her late 40s or 50s. She didn't want to have sex anymore, and so you're like, you know what, I'm done with this. I just want to move to a place where I can date younger women, where that's not going to be a problem. I totally get that, okay? I totally get that. I'm a guy too. I'm a man too. Guess what? I get it. However, you want to consider the whole picture as well. If you want to get married in a country, right? I mean, really consider the whole picture, because there's language barrier, there's cultural differences, you know, there's social differences. Like, consider all of this. You know, if you want to go to a place, you want to marry someone, what's the objective? Why do you want to marry someone? Is it because you want to have equal rights? Is it because you want to own property? You can't own property, land yourself, so you want to marry someone so you can put the land and the property under her name? Okay, that would be a justification, I guess. You need to understand the person, right? You need to be able to integrate in the culture. If you want to have a fulfilling life, if you want to have a great family life, a great relationship, if you want to have great community life with her family, with her friends, you got to integrate in the culture. You need to potentially speak the language, right? Because if they are unwilling to learn English, then how are you ever going to be able to communicate? How are you ever going to be able to have a good time if you can't communicate? Which of the discussed downsides of living abroad have you personally encountered? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and make sure you turn on that notification bell. In case you have not grabbed the free copy of my ebook, Nomad Elite, The Insider's Guide to Retaining a Life of Freedom, you can do that now. Click on the link in the description of the video. If you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.